Hi guys, Johnny Good here for Real Home Studio. Today's video features an interview which I conducted earlier this week with studio owner, musician, producer, mix engineer, all-round great guy, Justin Brand. Justin runs NRSIX Studios here in the heart of Norwich City in the east of England, UK. Justin is a very highly regarded producer, mix engineer and musician, and we're very lucky to have both him and his studio working here in Norwich. If you've ever dreamed, however, of running your own studio professionally, then this is an interview you absolutely don't want to miss. Justin's very open in sharing his knowledge and experiences. I hope you get a lot out of this interview. Don't forget as well, if you do, to like, subscribe to Real Home Studio, and make sure you have yourself a great day. So NRSIX, you established it in 2012.
Yes.
How did it all come about?
Okay, so I've been recording music since I was probably about 17, I'd say. And always been, I suppose, like we do, we learn as much as we can as we go through life, particularly with recording. Converted from hardware to software around about the age of 26, so that would have been about 2006, and just always wanted to have my own studio. Obviously, it's a dream. And then 2012, finally managed to get a little room, a little playroom, as it was always supposed to be, and then recorded a band. From that, somebody else wanted their band recorded, and so what was originally supposed to be a playroom kind of turned into a bit of a business. And NRSIX was born.
Wow. So it was quite organic. There was no sort of real business pressure or anything. It was just sort of for the love of it at the start.
Never really even supposed to be a business. But yeah, I'm glad that it is.
You let it happen. So hardware to software. So where were you when you were on hardware? Was that a good old multi-track or something?
Yeah. A Roland. I thought you'd ask this question, so I was trying to remember. I think it was a Roland VS 880.
Okay.
Which I never really kind of knew how to use, but the first thing for me was I had a mini disc player when I was about 18, 19. So I used to record, I had it hooked up to a video recorder, and I used to record little film clips. And I used to incorporate them into pieces of music as much as I could. So I never really kind of learned how to use it fully, but could use it just enough. And then, when I was about 26, I can't remember whether it was Logic 6 or Logic 7 that I started with, but ended up on Logic. And
you finally took the plunge.
Yeah.
I was quite resistant to that. I don't know about you, but I really liked the hardware. It took quite a lot for me to finally completely commit to
I don't know. I think for me it was something new and it was something exciting. And if there's something new, I'm always going to get excited by it. So I was quite happy to sort of jump in. And
there's definitely no way back though, would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's whenever you get somebody in who's recording and they maybe mess up a take, and it's like, don't worry. Don't worry. We've got plenty of space. You
haven't got to dial back on like a postage stamp digital screen. Go and find it.
Yeah, I think that was probably the issue of why I never really sort of got to grips with using the hardware was, small screens, loads of different menus. So
they never really sorted those screens out on those. I used to have an old Fostex. I think the screen was probably about 1.5 inches by 1 inch tall. Yeah. You can't even imagine it now.
No.
Eye-bending.
Exactly. I mean, I've got a 27-inch screen here and I still put my nose on the screen to look at things. So I don't know how that
could be that we're just getting older.
Yeah.
So what was your musical story before sort of recording really took its hold? Where did it all start? Guitar?
Yeah. Although probably before that, about as rock and roll as you could get would have been the recorder.
The recorder?
Absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah. Learning like jingle bells and everything like that.
What sort of age are we when we got the recorder?
Oh, about 28. No, so I'd have been probably in like primary school.
Right.
And then from there, I played trombone. I have grade 3 on a trombone.
Well done.
Not that I probably know how to do it now.
Well, we're going to test you on that later on.
We just happened to have. But so let me think. I would have been probably about 10 years old. And we used to go to Haysborough caravan site.
Right.
And we'd go to this little youth club, go and play pool and fiddle about on like the game machines up there. And they had a jukebox.
Mm-hmm.
And on that jukebox was lots of songs, obviously, but within them was Sweet Child of Mine.
Classic.
And Paradise City. And so I would put Paradise City on repeat every time that we went up there. And we went there for a couple of years in a row. So I would have been 10 and 11 and started to realize that the sound of a guitar solo was just the best thing ever. So kind of bugged my mum and I was like, I want to play guitar. So at the age of 12, finally got my first guitar, started learning, had a few lessons. So yeah, guitar would have been where it started. Writing songs, being in bands. And then the first time I went to a recording studio, that was really, I think, where the kind of bug began of, this is cool. And yeah, I'd probably say sort of from there to early 20s was just kind of fiddling about. And then mid 20s, I think, was when it got a little bit more serious. And I think that's where the obsession started of just wanting to know how to do it all. And I think what studio was it that you went in first of all? Was it local to here? Or? The very first studio would have been the Mill, which I believe is obviously still there. That was I think I was about 17 when I went there. And then Plug, used to go to Plug with Errol when it was down Rose Lane in Norwich. And been to a few studios over the years. But I think where the issue kind of came of going to those studios was never being fully happy. Always coming away and there being something. It's like, oh, I wish I could just replace that bit of guitar. And I think that's when I then started to think, well, I wonder if it's something that I could do myself. That's kind of, I guess, what then snowballed into what it is now. And
have you found that happiness?
No.
I was going to say.
No. Interestingly,
now you know why.
Interestingly enough, I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. We were talking about finished tracks, like when a track is finished. And somebody said to me, it sounds obvious. They said, do you know that a track is finished when you sit there and go, wow, this sounds great? And I know a track's finished when it doesn't annoy me anymore.
Sure,
because I'll listen to a track and there'll always be something. I'll be like, that little bit there is bugging me. And when I can listen to a track from start to finish and there's nothing that bugs me, well, it must be done. That's kind of the point. But yeah, I did learn to appreciate other studios a lot more when I started doing stuff myself. I started to realize that. So if you think that a studio, every track that comes out of a studio is an example of that studio, and if you hear something that sounds great, naturally you go, wow, great studio, want to go there. If you hear something that doesn't sound so great, you might not want to go there. And I started to understand that that's not necessarily the studio's fault. Because when you get somebody that's like, hey, we'd like to book 8 hours, we'd like to do 25 tracks.
Our album. Album.
We'd like to do a double album and
with strings.
With a full Philharmonic orchestra and we can afford 1 hour's mixing. Is that okay? And it's like, it's probably not going to sound that great. So I think that's kind of been a hurdle and an obstacle, is trying to get people to understand that the mixing part is probably way more important than the recording part. The recording part can be quite simple. So getting people to understand that. So I think I started to appreciate other studios and have a little bit of sympathy for them. That they work with what they can. I care about every project that I do, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes I'll come in here and sneak a little bit of extra time on something just to get it a little bit better. What they.
We've got more flexibility in the mix than we would have 10, 20 years ago. Certainly as well. So we can do a little bit more these days with relative ease than I'm thinking a bit of auto tuning here and there and
auto-tune's a funny one.
Splits the crowd.
What's your opinion?
I love it as a tool.
Let's flip the interview round. What's your opinion?
I love it as a tool. That's how I use it to bump stuff. Not as a thing to rely on.
No.
I always strive to, as a vocalist, to give a good performance. But if I've got a great take and isolated and I can improve it a bit for a recording, why not? That's recording, right? You want the recording to be as good as possible.
Well, let me tell you where I hate it.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. No, I think auto-tune is something, and you'll know as well as I do, I don't know why they call it auto-tune when you sit there and manually edit it all in.
Yeah.
You can put some auto-tune on that? No, I'm going to manually tune your vocals for the next 3 hours.
Yeah.
I tend to use Melodyne, which I like a lot. But it's getting people to understand that you can be Beyonce, you can be Adele, you can be Mariah Carey, whoever. Every single one of those, when they're going in the studio, is having an auto-tune put on their vocal.
Yeah, sure.
And you get people who have this kind of pride thing of, no, I need to sing it like that. And it's like, well, no offense, you're not going to sing it like that because that doesn't exist. That's not real.
Yeah.
You know, it maybe is 99.9%, but obviously it's that 0.1% that.
It's a health saver as well. Like, you know, Lennon would famously, be screaming out his vocals for 8 hours in the studio.
Yeah.
You don't want to be doing that as a singer, not if you've got to go and work the weekend. You know, a long vocal session can be really grueling to try and constantly go over the same part of your vocal cords.
Yeah. And also, sometimes you get, like you say, you might get a little take that's just like, oh, that's got so much character. The way maybe their voice broke, completely accidentally, but it sounds phenomenal, but it's just a little bit pitchy.
Yeah.
So let's keep it, let's pitch it. And now listen to that. That sounds, that rawness is coming through. Yeah, and now it's perfectly in tune.
So. Yeah. So I think anything you can polish up to, I don't think it's being disingenuous. I think you want to get it to sound as good as possible.
Absolutely.
So the listener wants that too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. People don't. I remember once playing Damien Rice to somebody.
The first album.
Oh, it would have been obviously incredible album, beautiful songs.
But pitchy.
Yeah. And funny enough, we were listening to this at the time that the James Blunt album came out.
Right.
And he was a big James Blunt fan.
Right.
And he said that
he's the one.
He's got a very funny Twitter. So yeah, I remember him saying that he liked listening to James Blunt and he didn't like listening to Damien Rice. Now, Damien Rice, in my opinion, is a far better songwriter. His songs are stunningly beautiful.
Yeah.
But when I said to him, why don't you like this? It was just at that moment that an out of pitch note came out.
Yeah.
And he said, because of notes like that.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, it's like you say, I think a lot of people, they do want it perfect, but it depends what you're after.
It's a good reminder that, though, as a kid, and I think there's a lot of people as well out there that love demos. I still love demos. And I love that Damien Rice record. Very young, when that came out, very much recognised it was pitchy, and I was quite a pitchy singer back then too.
Phenomenal album.
But it's a great album, and there's, I don't know, that's the very difficult thing to grasp about art and music is, would that have been better if would it take away some rawness?
I think it would have taken away from it. And also what you have to then remember from that there is a lyric on the first Ed Sheeran album when he says something about see my name in stadium lights with Damien Rice.
Right.
So that Damien Rice is a massive influence for
huge
for Ed Sheeran and for lots of other artists. Once upon a time when it came to the acoustic artist, I mean, people like Damien Rice and Glenn Hansard.
Yeah.
The film Once, which has just got some incredible songs in it. Again, they're not pitched. That's real vocal.
Yeah.
I think it was the very first Willie Mason album. I think has literally got a song on there which is recorded probably on a tape recorder.
Right.
And I mean, do you remember those ones? They had like the square speaker in, and then you had the tape bit, and then you had
the flatbed ones.
The flat, yeah. Probably just recorded on that.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just goes to show. And depending on the music, I've heard some acoustic music which has been recorded very modernly and brick-walled, which, in my opinion, is not what you do with acoustic music. And it just doesn't sound right to me.
Yeah.
Time and a place for everything, and with acoustic music, sometimes it's nice, hear it all polished. Sometimes if it's raw, it just sounds great.
Just has that special feel.
Yeah.
But again, there's that like sort of Snow Patrol I think of when you say brick wall, and that everything feels like it's really pushed to the front, and it seems to really work, I think, for them. But like you said, with Damien Rice, I couldn't imagine if you had something produced like that and it was all like,
maybe we should try it. We'll do
like hybrid series.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
So like, You've been, as I mentioned at the start, running this since 2012. It's pretty. Things have changed a lot running studios. What business strategies or what ways have you employed to keep NR6 kind of up and running? Because the point I'm getting is studios aren't quite as simple as they used to be. It wasn't get the bands in. There wasn't a big queue of bands. Or there isn't a big queue of bands that there used to be.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that one of the biggest things which has changed is that software has become more accessible. It's become more affordable. And there's a lot of people out there who, I guess, like me, thought, well, I can just do this myself. I think that the danger that you have with that is that it does take a lot of time. You know, there's so many things out there you get. I saw a company the other day advertising for a vocal preset pack for Logic, you know, and there's people commenting on there saying, this is great, this is amazing, I'm so glad I bought it. And that's kind of the world that we live in now. You've got companies like Splice, who I had a guy that I was working with recently who sort of late 90s was making his own dance music. And he said to me, how are people making dance music nowadays? I said, well, they're just going and getting a sample pack and half of the work's already done for them. And they just mix them together. And with these vocal preset packs.
Did you make him weep?
Pretty much. He was kind of like, no, he was totally unaware. Like, it's almost like for the last 20 years, he's just been away from music, suddenly come back to it. And obviously, you know, 20 years, a lot has changed. Yeah. But when I first started recording, it would have been with presets. And a prime example would be, you know, you'll go on YouTube and you'll be like, right, kick drum EQ. And they'll be like, right, you need to boost it here, you need to cut it there, and you need to boost it there. So you do that. But in the early days, you're unaware that actually, how does my mic differ to the one that they use?
Of course, yeah.
How does the environment, how does the positioning, how does the sound of the bass drum, the tightness of, you know, all these different things to take into consideration, which I don't think you kind of pick up on until a little bit further through the journey, like, you know, like we were saying about when you start questioning things and you start going, well, hang on a minute, you know, maybe it would be better if I did it this way. And so, I guess to go back to the question, I think what has changed now is a lot of people think that they can just do it themselves. What I also find, though, is that a majority of the time, not all the time, but a majority of the time, those, you know, maybe there is something that they're missing. Maybe there's, you know, I'll be sent a vocal from somebody and it quite clearly needs EQing, or it's quite clearly been recorded in a bad environment, like a kitchen with a stone floor and sounds horrendous, you know. So I think that's been the biggest change, is people that, you know, can now do it at home and don't necessarily need a studio. But on the flip side to that, when you do get those people into a studio, I think then they start to realize where the knowledge and where the expertise
value of
comes
experience,
in, and the value. Yeah. Long answer, but hopefully
for the right one.
No, there is still a need for studios. It's I'm a big fan of John Feldman. Big fan of Goldfinger back in the day, and a big fan of John Feldman's productions from the Blink albums to obviously the Goldfinger albums of today. And one of the things that he talks about a lot is this 10,000 hours. He always says that it's 10,000 hours to perfect your craft. Now, I've been recording for over 20 years now. I'd say that really since 2012 with having the studio, I thought I could just go from a laptop to a studio and it would just be a real simple transition. And it never was. Fresh problems, things that need to be dealt with, you know. So, you know, there's that knowledge and expertise it takes a long time to get it, you know, and knowing what to do, any situation that I'm given, it's very rare that I have to really sort of think about what I need to do, because I just kind of know.
Yeah. With that in mind, how has your approach to recording changed from when you opened up to now? Presets.
Just presets, yeah. I just bought a load of presets. They were really good. You know, I couldn't believe how good they were.
So there must be quite, like you were saying, quite a learning curve. Suddenly you've got and I know that if I freelance in the studio, and suddenly I've got a band arriving, and you think, I've got to switch this on now.
Yeah.
You know, and sort of manage the whole situation as well as sort of being on
Yeah,
your own, isn't it?
you've got to take control of stuff. And maybe in the early days it would be like, oh, we've got a drum kit here. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
So I've got a drum kit here that sounds like shit.
Yeah.
And in the early days, it's like, well, you know, it is what it is. Let's get some mics on it, and let's kind of do the best that we can with it. Yeah. And almost feeling like, I suppose in the early days, I wanted to get a drummer in, get the drum kit mic'd up, and an hour later, I want to be recording.
Yeah.
Whereas, as you know, as you start to go on, you know, you start to realize that a snare drum that works live doesn't actually work in a recording environment. Sure, yeah. And we might tune it up for live, we might tune it down for recording, and kind of not being afraid to be like, right, you know, if we're going to get the best out of this drum kit, then we need to fiddle about with it and actually experiment. And so that's kind of been a big change. Not pushing the record button straight away, spending a bit of time to get to the point where we can. Other than that, I think the biggest changes have just been in, you know, maybe techniques, maybe software, equipment, hardware. I mean, Kemper's completely changed the game.
Sure, yeah.
IRs have completely changed the game. You know, I said to you earlier on that I stuck a couple of mics in front of the Hammond organ yesterday and realized as I was doing it, I can't remember what the last time was that I got a microphone out. Yeah. Because the amps go through load boxes, which go into IRs. You know, I very rarely even use my amps now because I'm using my Kemper all the time. So equipment has been nice to be able to let us, you know, I can come out here at midnight if I wanted to, and no one would even know I'm out here because it's all silent recording. But then with that comes the quality. So I'd say that some things have got easier. Or maybe it's just the fact that my head's so full of this knowledge now that I find it easier, you know.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, how do you keep motivated from project to project? Because I think that's a big thing for people who are also working on their own stuff in the home studios, but also there's a transition into working professionally.
Yeah.
Where you've got to work for deadlines, everything sort of is a bit of a game changer.
Yeah.
How do you keep that fresh as that's coming out? And
obsession.
Yeah.
It's just absolute
Is that
obsession.
still the same as it was? It's not waned. That's great.
Yeah, it is great, but it's also horrible at the same time. So like, let's take, for example, guitar, right? So I started playing guitar at 12. And to this day, I still play my guitar probably nearly every day. And I still love it as much as I used to, but I'll pick it up. And then after a while, I put it down, you know, because I'm done with it. I've had a little twiddle with it.
And got it out your system.
Yeah, got it out of my system, and that's that.
Yeah.
When it comes to recording, that boredom bit never kicks in. Like I just sit there and edit and just keep going with it. And if anything, having this as a full-time job, it's not so bad now, but for a while it was kind of like almost like a little bit of a burden, because rather than going to bed and going, oh, you know, nice day's work, I'll go to sleep now, I'm going to bed and I'm thinking, oh, you know, I wonder what would happen if I was using maybe a different compressor, or maybe a different, you know, if we did this a little bit differently. And that's horrible, because you suddenly realize, you know, I don't ever want it to stop being fun, and it never isn't fun. So hopefully that will continue. But I'd say that's the drive. And
I think there's a lot of people, and including people that will be watching this right now, that completely know what that's like to go to bed and go, I should have used the.
It's like anything. I remember when I was like 17, 18, playing Tony Hawk's like all day on the PlayStation, like we were back in like the late 90s. And you go to bed and you're just like, oh, flip, flip, grind, grind, flip, flip, and you can almost kind of see it. And that's kind of what this is. Again, you know, I always say that when it comes to recording music, I can't listen to projects for a long period of time afterwards, because I don't hear them. Yeah, I still see them.
Of course,
I still see the colors and the different cuts and stuff. And it takes a while for me to forget that, and then to be able to listen to it like a piece of music and go, oh, that sounds all right. But yeah, it's just fun. I just love doing it, and I'm very fortunate that that's what I have to do.
Yeah, it's a blessing to be able to do, isn't it? Especially these days.
I say what I have to do. You know, it's what I want to do. It is what I do, and I'm very lucky to be able to do that.
Yeah, yeah. So looking back to kid who first got his hands on, did you have a tape 4-track, or did you go straight into?
No, it had a little hard disk in it.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
So going back to that kid then, what would you tell yourself back then, to the little kid that was, or now what, your teens?
Go and get yourself a regular 9-to-5 job in a nice office. That, you know, what would I say? It's going to be okay. No, I think, I mean, back then, it was never about recording. I never saw that this was what I would do. Like, for me, when I was 17, I mean, when I was at school, you know, learn as much as you can at school, and study hard, because I didn't. I just didn't enjoy school. For me, the guitar was much more fun. Writing songs was much more fun. I remember a guy years ago speaking with somebody else. So he was speaking with a French guy in perfect French. And I was like, my God, how can you speak French so well? And he went, what did you do at school? I was like, I just played my guitar a lot. He's like, yeah, I studied French.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. But yeah, so for me, all I wanted to do was, I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to be in a band. I wanted to tour the world. I wanted to be famous, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like so many other people, you start to realize that that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think I reached a point where I just thought, actually, all I want to do is be involved in music somewhere. I don't know what that is, and I don't know what that looks like at the moment, but I just want to be involved in music somewhere. And then kind of fell into this, really. I just kind of found it. And like, when it comes to the guitar, right, and this is kind of an analogy that I use a lot. You think about someone like Eddie Van Halen, right? He didn't learn to play that guitar. He just picked it up and it worked, you know. I pick up a guitar and it doesn't work. I have to really think about what I'm doing. Yeah. For some reason, when it comes to recording, everything just goes in.
It clicks for you.
And I think that everybody has something that, you know, just kind of comes naturally to them. And for me, I think that's kind of been the recording thing. I've kind of found my thing. And,
you grab the baton and
but going back to that kid that was playing with the thing, you know, don't know. I'll probably just say keep going, keep fiddling and playing. It'll be fine.
You're in the subconscious at that point and that age where you just know that's pretty cool. You just you're having a good time.
It was always music, even back then. Yeah. I mean, from probably the age of like 13, 14, that was it. It was music. It was always going to be that. And it took me a long time to get there, you know, to now finally be at the point when someone says, what's your occupation?
Yeah.
And you're just like, well, I don't know, really, music producer, studio owner, you know, I still don't know. I'm still trying to figure that bit out. But being able to say that you work in music,
it's a nice
it's
moment,
cool.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah. So who comes through the door on a day-to-day basis at NRSIX? Who do you experience? Obviously, a lot of musicians, but you do a bit of tutoring as well here. And
so I mean, it's a bit of everything, really. I mean, I've done voiceovers, I've done podcasts, I work with a huge amount of rap artists, and that kind of thing. I work with rock musicians, and I mean, it's everything. I literally do kind of everything. Every day is slightly different. But the music tuition actually came about because, again, I guess it kind of goes back to what I was saying about, you know, people thinking that they can do it themselves.
Yeah.
And they can probably do a bit of it themselves. But, you know, if we're going to learn how to play guitar, what's the first thing we do? We find a guitar tutor.
Yeah, of course.
If people want to take singing seriously, they find a singing tutor or a piano teacher. For some reason, I don't know why people don't go, I want to do music production. Where do I learn? You know, you can go to a music college and do a 2 or 3 year course if you want to. Alternatively, I can show somebody something in an hour that will change completely what they do. And usually it's a case of actually looking at what someone's done and just unwinding it a bit
Sure,
and
yeah.
going, right, okay, look at what happens when you don't use this compressor preset.
Yeah.
Because again, that compressor preset only works maybe if you're using the same mic, if it's been recorded with the same amount of gain.
Yeah.
How many people record stuff with the gain all the way up rather than turning the music down?
Right, yeah.
People don't think about
compressor presets are somewhat of a long shot.
Absolutely, absolutely. But to the untrained ear and to the untrained person, they don't know that. So yeah, the music production just kind of came about like that. I've got about 2 or 3 students now who come here on a regular basis,
and
we work through things. So that's been really good fun. The biggest thing for me is that the passion that I have for recording and for the music, and then being able to actually share that with people.
Yeah.
I work with Access Creative College. I have a couple of students that I work with there. They'll come and literally shadow what I do.
Yeah.
And, as we kind of joked earlier on, being at the family barbecue when you don't like football and you want to talk about compressors.
Yeah.
It's not a conversation you have a lot.
No.
So being able to get that out of my system and talk at somebody for 3 hours about what makes something a bit different.
It's important for the people to have the opportunity to shadow, because there was a lot more of that going on, even back to the mid-90s.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously it's less and less of the bigger studios. There's less opportunities to, as you said, you can go and do courses and you can do things like access for music. And there's a lot going on in schools as well, but I still don't think you can beat learning off a working producer.
I would still happily go to a studio. I mean, I've got, my people that I would love to go in the studio with. I'd love to go in with Butch Vig.
Yeah.
Producing Foo Fighters would be an absolute dream. Oh my God.
And a blast.
It'd be incredible. I'd like to be in a studio with Deadmau5 and see how he does all the dance production and things like that. Again, someone that's very, very good at what he does. And, I'm someone that's been recording for over 20 years, and I would welcome any opportunity to go to a studio and see how somebody does, something a bit different, and maybe be like, oh my God, I never thought about doing it. That's like
part
that.
Of the gift, isn't it? That constant learning.
You're always learning. You'll never learn it.
That's
all.
the buzz.
Yeah. There's always something new, and you learn a new technique, and it just changes. It changes everything, and that's how we get better. It's how we evolve, and
it keeps us fresh.
Yeah,
keeps us on the toes. So for anyone watching now who's looking at this, thinking they'd love to transition at some point from what they're learning in their home studios and ultimately one day run their own studio space, what advice can you give them for making that transition?
Just use presets. Just work at it. Work at it. It's the only way you're going to do it. You need to go and you need to do it, and you need to get it wrong a lot.
Yeah.
So that you can understand what you've got wrong and why you got it wrong.
Yeah.
And then how you get it right. And then, you can even say, is there any such thing as like getting it right? Because a lot of the time, maybe you didn't get it right, but
back to the Damien Rice record, right?
Yeah. But it kind of becomes what it is. And you've just got to learn, and you've got to put the time in. But the most important thing is that every time you do it, it needs to be slightly better than the last one.
Yeah.
I remember the day that I had a bit of a breakthrough, which was, so, we all record something in the studio, we mix it in the studio, but we all go and listen to it in the car.
Yeah, of course.
And someone said to me recently, they said, why do you listen to it in the car? Are your car speakers better than your studio speakers? And I just was like, no. But it's what we do, because that's our listening place. We know what the car test. Yeah. We know what it sounds like in there. But I remember the day of being in here and mixing quite a substantial track. I mean, there's probably about 80 plus tracks going on of something happening in there. I mean, we had so much going on with backing vocals and additional. I mean, that was the first time we ever had a Hammond, and the reason why I have the Hammond is because I couldn't find a decent Hammond plugin.
Sure, yeah.
Which I did find eventually, but when I saw that going, it's just like, well, it'd be better.
There's nothing quite the same.
Have the real thing. So we had that all in there, and there was so much going on, and I recorded it, and then went and listened to it in the car. I was just like, oh my God, this sounds great.
Yeah.
There's nothing annoying me. Do you know what I mean? I want to shout from the rooftops that I've suddenly had a breakthrough, that I've been able to mix something and master something, and and it sounds absolutely great.
Sounds pro.
And yesterday I had a session in here and we were listening to an old version of a song, and from that old version there was also then another version that we'd done probably about a year ago of the same song, but it'd just been remastered slightly. And then yesterday we were just looking at it, trying to bump the volume up a tiny little bit. But I actually realized that the first one that we ever did was using a piece of mastering software. The second one, which sounded better, was actually a manual master that I'd done.
Yeah.
And just looking at something like that and going, that's interesting, because we actually ended up using the version which I mastered, not the one where a piece of software was mastering it for me. That's in itself is a bit of a breakthrough.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that's, you know, advice to people who want to do it. Just keep going. You'll get there eventually. You know, some might get there quicker than others. But it's you know, just keep persistent. Keep going at it, be persistent, and try and be slightly better than the last one every time.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, we'll round it up with these two fun questions. Three top plugins at the moment.
3 top plugins
right now, yeah, because that's going to change if you're anything like me.
So I'm using a Softube Console 1, and I'm currently really enjoying the American Class A, mainly for the compressor. It's got a really quick compressor on that, which I like. Recently been playing with the Analog Obsession La, which is great. Sounds fantastic on bass and fantastic on vocals as well. And the third one, I'm trying to have a look and see what I've been using recently. Is it the Waves Tracker Track Spacer? That's a good little one.
Right.
That's been really helpful on rap vocals recently.
Right.
Have you used that one?
No.
So, you know, sidechain compression, you know how that works.
Yep.
The difference with this is that it uses the vocal to sidechain the beat, but it only carves out the frequencies of where the vocal's hitting, as opposed to just ducking everything.
Oh, okay.
You should check it out.
Yeah,
do a review of it. It's very, very cool. It's I think I paid about 30-40 quid for it.
Yeah.
And it's very, very good.
Right.
Really helps vocals sit in the mix, because with rappers, they tend to bring a track as opposed to bringing all the stems that you mix everything into.
Sure.
You want to try and put that vocal in the mix a bit more.
Yeah.
So that tends to do that. But yeah, Waves Tracker Track Spacer.
Yeah.
Do a review of that. It's very, very good. Yeah, I'll probably say they're the 3.
Yeah.
At the moment.
And one piece of gear, although I'm already thinking the man you talked about your Hammond, it might be that. But it's the one piece of gear that's
yeah.
If your studio was on fire, that's what they usually say. What piece would come out?
What would I grab? No, it wouldn't be that.
It wouldn't be the Hammond.
It's too heavy.
It's not worth enough.
There's a fire. Grab the other end. Yeah, no, I've got a couple of guitars sat behind you. That'd be the first things to come out. Yeah. Although even with those now, well, I do know which one I would grab, but hopefully if there was a fire, I'd have time to grab 3.
Yeah.
That'd be really handy.
Just grab the rack.
Yeah.
So where can people find out more about your studio? And you have a YouTube channel as well, right? We'll put all the links in the description.
Yeah, so the YouTube channel, there is an NRSIX Studios YouTube channel.
Yeah.
There's not really anything on there at the moment. It's more of a, there will be some stuff coming. I'm just trying to get my head around exactly what I'm going to put on there. Maybe it'll be some mix breakdowns, or maybe just, you know, even just kind of observing me while I'm mixing, you know, I don't really know. I have a rap YouTube channel called Fire Pit TV, which is showcasing lots of rap artists. We're now about to celebrate our year's anniversary. That's been going really, really well.
Right.
So yeah, just Fire Pit TV. That's on all the socials as well. Fire Pit TV. And then NR6 Studios. NR6.co.uk is the website. So yeah, put the right one in the link. But yeah, obviously Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Just look for NRSIX Studios.
So we'll have all the links below in the description.
Wicked.
Justin, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Nice one. Do we shake hands now? Or
yeah,
do we touch
elbows?
elbows?
Let's shake hands. Nice one.
Buddy. Nice
Cheers,
one.
buddy.
Cheers.